The world is louder than ever. Every second, someone is posting, sharing, tagging, uploading, shouting for attention in a global room where everyone is talking and few are truly listening. Visibility has become a currency, a badge, a drug. And we've confused being seen with being significant. But here's the truth they won't tell you. Visibility is hollow without value. Being seen doesn't mean being remembered. Being loud doesn't mean being impactful. And attention without substance is like thunder without rain. It makes noise but changes nothing. You can buy followers. You can boost a post. You can fake popularity. But you can't fake value. You can't fake mastery. You can't fake depth. You can't fake a life that actually matters when the lights go off and the screen goes black. Because at the end of the day, it's not who shouts the loudest that wins, it's who builds the deepest. It's not the person who is everywhere, but the one who is undeniable in the one place that counts. So ask yourself, do you want to be famous or do you want to be formidable? Do you want applause or do you want authority? Do you want clicks or do you want conviction? Because one lasts as long as the algorithm allows, and the other carves your name into eternity. Being visible is easy. All you need is noise, a little drama, a trending topic, and a well-timed post. But being valuable, that takes work. That takes depth. That takes the kind of soul-forging discipline most will never understand. Because it doesn't get likes, it doesn't get shares, it gets results. And real results come from what people don't see, from the hours behind the scenes, from the silence where you study, build, grind, from the moments you chose to grow instead of post, from the times you stayed in the shadows not because you were hiding, but because you were honing. See, a lot of people look the part. They sound impressive. They play the role. But when the lights come on and life demands performance, they crumble. Because visibility gives you attention, but only value earns you trust. Only value builds the kind of reputation that precedes you. Only value makes you unforgettable in a world that forgets fast. So don't just show up. Show up prepared. Show up with skill. Show up with something to say, something to give, something that changes people when you speak, when you move, when you lead. You don't need to market harder. You need to matter more. You don't need a bigger audience. You need real impact. You don't need to chase relevance. You need to become irreplaceable. Because here's the secret. The most powerful people in any room aren't always the loudest. They're the ones who bring weight. Their words carry force. Their presence shifts the atmosphere not because they scream, but because they stand for something. And that something comes from within. It comes from a decision to stop performing for approval and start producing from alignment. It comes from a life lived with intention, not imitation. It comes from building character when nobody's clapping, from doing the right thing when it's invisible, from living in such a way that even in silence you speak volumes. That's value, and it starts with mindset. Because if your mind is constantly chasing visibility, it will miss the quiet, hidden work that makes you great. You'll chase attention instead of mastery. You'll chase comparison instead of clarity. You'll chase recognition instead of results. But if your mindset is locked in on becoming valuable, everything changes. You stop asking, how do I look? And start asking, what do I bring? You stop seeking applause and start earning respect. You stop posting for likes and start living for legacy. Because a valuable person doesn't need to ask for influence, they become it. And that kind of mindset is rare. It's uncomfortable. It's slow, but it's real. It's rooted. It doesn't rise fast, but when it does, it doesn't fall. Visibility rises like smoke. Value rises like a mountain. And you build that value one day at a time, with belief, with discipline, with fierce, unshakable clarity. Clarity about who you are. Clarity about what you're building. Clarity about what you will not sacrifice for a few extra views or a fleeting trend. Because when you're clear, you stop trying to be everything and you start becoming something irreplaceable. You stop trying to be seen by everyone and focus on being needed by the right ones. And from that clarity comes vision. A vision not based on what's popular, but on what's possible. Not built on the shallow winds of approval, but the deep roots of purpose. Purpose that says, I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to serve you. I'm not here to compete. I'm here to contribute. I'm not here for attention. I'm here for impact. When that vision guides you, everything gets sharper. Your goals become sacred. Your time becomes protected. Your energy becomes focused not on being everywhere, but on becoming excellent where it matters. You begin to value depth over reach, substance over spotlight, legacy over likes. And that shift, that internal revolution is what separates the visible from the valuable. Because once you've anchored your life in vision, you begin to move differently. You stop sprinting toward every trend. You stop pivoting every time the crowd turns. You no longer need to chase relevance. You define it. Because your life is not built on hype, it's built on heft. And from vision comes purpose. Not the kind you quote on your profile, the kind that pulls you out of bed before the sun, the kind that anchors you when everything around you is shaking, the kind that doesn't waver, doesn't weaken, doesn't wait for validation, it just works. See, when you're driven by purpose, you don't need attention to feel alive. You don't need likes to feel legitimate, because purpose doesn't beget builds. It builds systems. It builds consistency. It builds character. And character is everything. Because in a world that rewards appearance, character is the unseen advantage. Character is what makes people trust you in silence, defend you in absence, and follow you in uncertainty. It's the weight behind your words, the steel behind your smile, the force behind your presence. You can't fake character. You can't filter it. You become it by showing up when it's hard, telling the truth when it's costly, doing the work when no one's looking. And that's where discipline enters. Discipline is the ultimate separator, not talent, not charm, not even opportunity. Discipline, the ability to say, I will do it, and then do it again and again and again, whether the world is watching or not. To show up at 5 a.m. with no camera on you. To study when no one's praising your hustle. To build when nobody claps. That's the real flex. Discipline is the quiet engine of those who last. And it's what turns value from a dream into a reality. Not once, not sometimes, but daily. Because what you do every day becomes who you are forever. And discipline births action. But not just motion, meaningful movement. Not just busyness, bold steps toward a clear vision. Because you've seen what happens when people stay in their heads. They get stuck in potential, trapped in perfection, paralyzed by fear. But action is the antidote. Not loud, frantic action. Quiet, strategic, relentless execution. You don't need 100 ideas. You need one executed plan. You don't need everyone to agree. You need enough momentum to not care. Because when you act with alignment, the world adjusts. Doors open, voices rise, and life starts to move around your intention. And that intention brings us to gratitude. Not the soft kind that hides from ambition, the kind that amplifies it, the kind that says, because I'm grateful, I build. Because I'm blessed, I work. Because I've been given much, I will give more. Gratitude gives you energy when others burn out. It turns pressure into privilege. It takes I have to and turns it into I get to. And that energy flows into adaptability. Because no matter how strong your plan, the world will test it. Markets change. People shift. Life throws left hooks without warning. But the valuable don't panic. They pivot. They don't cling to the plan, they commit to the outcome. They're flexible in approach, but fixed in resolve. Because the end game isn't comfort, it's contribution. It's becoming the kind of person who can handle the storm and still deliver the message. And to keep delivering, you'll need resilience. Not toughness, not numbness. Resilience. The quiet strength to break without being broken. To bend without losing your backbone. To take the hits, hear the noise, feel the pressure and still rise. Still create. Still serve. Still matter. Because that's what value does. It doesn't retreat. It doesn't disappear when it's hard. It becomes even more essential, more rare, more revered. And as you keep showing up with that fire, that humility, that relentless excellence, something shifts. You no longer seek value. You embody it. You no longer need the spotlight. You are the light. Because when you are the light, you stop waiting for someone to hand you a platform. You become the platform, a foundation others can stand on, a standard others aspire to, a source that fuels rooms, movements, generations. And suddenly, you're not chasing influence. You're carrying weight. And in this world, weight is everything. Not the kind that crushes, but the kind that grounds. That makes people stop when you speak. That makes silence follow your words. That makes people listen because they can feel it. This person is not performing. This person is real. And that realness, that gravitas, it didn't come from shouting. It came from showing up every single day. When it wasn't convenient, when it wasn't glamorous, when it wasn't validated. And over time, you stopped being impressive. You started being unshakable. Because you weren't building a moment, you were building mastery. And mastery doesn't announce itself. It doesn't brag. It shows in the precision, in the posture, in the peace you carry. Because when you know you bring value, you no longer need to prove it. You live it. You lead with it. You walk in rooms with it not louder, but heavier. Not because you're demanding anything, but because you deliver everything. That's the shift. When the world starts adjusting to you, when the spotlight starts chasing you, when opportunity starts flowing to you, not because you manipulated it, but because you matured into it. You grew into someone who no longer needs to compete, because value never competes. Value doesn't chase. Value attracts. And now your work speaks without needing your voice. Your presence teaches without needing a podium. Your name carries weight without needing an introduction, because you live differently. You chose to build, not boast, to become, not broadcast, to root yourself in real substance, while the world was busy shouting into the wind. And now the wind listens. And let's be clear, this is not the path of the many. This is not the way of the performer. This is not for the addicted to approval. This is for the builders, the quiet storm, the rare breed who would rather be respected quietly than celebrated falsely. It's for the ones who know. Visibility fades. Fame dies. But value echoes. Long after the lights go off. Long after the applause dies out. Long after the world forgets the noise. They remember the one who gave them something real. Something that shaped them. Something that changed them. Something they carry forward. And if that's who you want to be, then you must live differently today. You must decide, will I impress or will I impact? Will I broadcast or will I build? Will I chase noise or will I craft depth? Because one fades and the other founds empires. So forget being everywhere. Forget being the loudest. Forget being seen. Be valuable, and the world will never forget you. And now we arrive at the edge of something sacred. The threshold where identity meets eternity, where what you do aligns fully with who you are, where every minute becomes a brushstroke on the masterpiece of your legacy. This is where power begins. Not the kind they flash on stages or post in pictures, the kind that lives in the marrow of your character, the kind that can't be faked, can't be photoshopped, can't be stolen. It can only be earned through depth, through discipline, through devotion to something bigger than applause. Because when you choose to be valuable, no, just visible, you rise above the cycle. You transcend the algorithm. You break free from the hamster wheel of being seen, liked, and forgotten. Instead, you root yourself in the eternal, in what lasts, in what matters, in what multiplies long after you're gone. You no longer build moments. You build movements. And it starts not with a speech or a post, but with a decision, the decision to live on purpose. Every word you speak with intention. Every action you take with alignment. Every hour you spend with precision. Because the one who becomes valuable understands this. You are not just here to participate. You are here to transform, to shift paradigms, to bend the room with your integrity, to awaken the powerful in others, simply by being true in yourself. And for that, you must be relentless. Relentless in your self-respect. Relentless in your craft. Relentless in your refusal to sell your soul for attention. Because the world will tempt you. It will offer you quick fame. It will applaud your image and ignore your emptiness. It will beg you to be interesting before you are useful. But you will not take the bait. Because you've seen where that road ends. Famous, but fragile. Known, but not needed. Everywhere, but not anchored. No, you've chosen something greater. Something fewer understand, but all remember. Legacy built through value. And that value is not what you say you are. It's what people experience when you walk into their life. It's how your words move them, how your actions elevate them, how your presence heals them, how your excellence leads them. That cannot be manufactured. It must be forged. Forged in the furnace of discipline, sharpened by solitude, tested in trials, proven in the fire of real life. So, here you are at the intersection of what's popular and what's permanent. And this moment is asking you to choose. Will you live for the camera or for consequence? Will you chase the trend or become the truth? Will you be another name on a screen or the voice in someone's soul? The world doesn't need more influencers. It needs more influencers of substance. People who have lived it. People who carry it. People who walk with such integrity, such depth, such undeniable weight, that even in silence they speak. So rise into that role. Let your value be felt before your name is even known. Let your excellence precede your presence. Let your character be the loudest thing about you. Because when you become valuable, truly, deeply, soulfully valuable, you don't just change lives. You change generations. And the world, it won't just see you. It will never be the same. Because you were here. Be valuable, not just visible. Most people never decide. They wake up each day and react to alarms, to emails, to opinions, to pressure. They live on autopilot, driven not by purpose, but by proximity. Whatever is loudest wins. Whatever is urgent steals their energy. Whatever the world hands them, they accept. And slowly, silently, invisibly, they drift. Not because they're weak, not because they're lazy, but because they never declared, this is where I'm going. And life does not reward the drifter. It forgets them. It buries them in busyness. It drowns them in distraction. It seduces them into surviving, while deep inside, something sacred begins to rot their potential. But not you, because you're here now, listening, waking, confronting. And that means there is still time to decide, time to live with intent, not with casual interest, but clear command, not with half-hearted goals, but with unshakable direction. Because the truth is sharp, If you do not decide who you are, the world will decide for you. And it will choose something small, something safe, something numb. It will give you comfort without fulfillment, security without freedom, activity without alignment. And then, one day, when the noise has faded, when the race has slowed, you will be left with a haunting question. What did I do with my time here? That's why we don't drift. That's why we don't sleepwalk through life waiting for the right time. That's why we don't let the wind carry us, we set the sail. We live with intent, and that starts inside, with mindset. Not the kind you paste on your bathroom mirror, the kind you bleed for, the kind that is earned in silence and proven in storms. Mindset isn't just thinking positively, it's thinking powerfully. It's the inner conviction that no matter what the world throws at me, I still choose who I am. It's waking up and asking not what's easy, but what's required of me today to move toward the life I was born to live. Because drifting is default, but intent is design. It is war against mediocrity. It is the conscious, continuous decision to shape every moment before it shapes you. It is mental sovereignty. Your thoughts become your compass. Your standards become your guardrails. Your vision becomes your fuel. And belief becomes your breath. Because intent without belief is just a wish. But belief, real belief, it doesn't beg. It declares. It doesn't whisper, I hope. It roars, I am. And that's where power is born, not in circumstance, but in certainty. Not because it's easy to believe, but because it's essential to become. You must believe before the breakthrough. You must believe before the evidence. You must believe even when it costs you relationships, comfort, familiarity, because belief is the door. And most never walk through it. They stand outside waiting for proof, waiting for permission. But you're not waiting anymore. Because now you know your life will not rise to meet your potential. It will rise to meet your self-image. So raise it. Raise it beyond your upbringing. Raise it beyond your environment. Raise it beyond every lie that told you to stay small, to stay realistic, to stay silent. Because belief without boundaries becomes the birthplace of clarity. And clarity? Clarity is your sword in the fog. It cuts through noise. It eliminates confusion. It gives you the power to say, this matters. This doesn't. This is who I am. That is who I'm not. Most people drown in options because they never took the time to decide what actually matters. But you are done drifting. So you clarify your life like a master sculptor chisels stone, removing everything that doesn't belong, not because it's bad, but because it's not yours. You make room for greatness by cutting the good. And from that ruthless clarity emerges something holy. Vision, not fantasy, not projection. Vision is intention made visible. It is the movie playing in the theater of your soul. The life that pulls you when everything else pushes. The destination you've seen so clearly that turning back feels like betrayal. Vision is what gives your pain purpose. It tells you, this suffering isn't random, it's rehearsal. It tells you, this sacrifice isn't lost its alignment. Vision lets you endure what others can't, because you see what others don't. And when you live with that kind of sight, when you see who you could be, who you were meant to be, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to the couch. You can't go back to drifting. You can't go back to average. Because something wakes up, and that something demands purpose. Not just what you do, but why you do it. Not just what you build, but who you become through the building. Purpose is the difference between exhaustion and emptiness. People burn out not because they're doing too much, but because what they're doing doesn't mean anything. But when you move with purpose, even the hard days feel holy. Even the grind feels sacred. Even the repetition becomes revelation. You don't count hours. You maximize moments. You don't escape work. You worship the process. And that process It demands one thing above all: discipline. The ability to live in alignment with your intent regardless of how you feel. Discipline is not control. Discipline is commitment to your future self. It's not about doing what's hard, it's about doing what's true. Even when you're tired, even when you're scared, even when the world says, just take a break. Discipline says, not now. I have a future to protect. Because every undisciplined choice is a vote for regret. And every disciplined decision is a step toward freedom. Live with intent or drift with regret. There is no middle path. Then breathe deep, because this next part is not for the faint of heart. This is where intention becomes incarnation, where thoughts turn into flesh, where dreams grow legs and move. Because once you've decided, once you've chosen purpose, vision, discipline, now you must act, not occasionally, not when you feel ready, not when you're inspired. Now, because action is the language the universe responds to, not your plans, not your vision boards, your behavior. That's how intention becomes real. You move. You get up before the sun. You train your body when no one's watching. You speak truth even when your voice shakes. You do the work no one applauds, because you understand legacy is built in silence. That is the cost of alignment. You cannot live with intent and act from hesitation. You cannot move with vision and keep waiting for someone else to go first. You go first. You become the evidence. You make your life the loudest voice in the room, because action without permission is the purest form of freedom. It says, I no longer need the world to agree, I just need to become. And as you move, as you build, as you live aligned to intention, you'll begin to notice something strange. Even the pain becomes sacred. Even the setbacks feel designed. Even the losses feel intelligent. Because gratitude takes over. Not the shallow kind, the deep, cellular kind. The kind that says, thank you for the obstacle, for the delay, for the resistance, because it shaped me in ways ease never could. Gratitude that turns hardship into fuel. That turns why me into try me. That turns every dark moment into a cathedral. You stop needing life to be perfect. You start seeing that it already is. You understand now every moment was a teacher. Every person was a mirror. Every season was a sculptor. And you are no longer bitter. You are better. That's what intent does. It doesn't just change your direction. It changes your perception. And when you start living from that level of gratitude, you become resilient. Not just strong, not just tough, but resilient. Resilience is not bouncing back. Resilience is bouncing forward. It's not recovering. It's rebuilding better. It's falling 10 times and standing up 11, not because you have to, but because you were born to. You were not designed for ease. You were designed for evolution. And evolution doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in crisis. You don't become powerful despite the pain. You become powerful because of it. So bring the pressure, bring the storm, bring the silence, the setbacks, the seasons of nothing working, because all of it becomes you. And if you embrace that, if you let go of needing it to be easy, needing it to make sense, needing it to be fair, then you rise into your final form, the learner, the master of humility, the one who never stops growing, not because they're broken, but because they are unshakably whole. Learning is not weakness. It is worship. It is how the strong stay sharp. It is how the great stay grounded. You study your own life like scripture. You study your mistakes like maps. You study Pio Plena to copy them, but to expand your context. And because you never stop learning, you never stop evolving. You become impossible to contain. You outgrow your past. You outgrow your limits. You outgrow every box they tried to stuff you into. And now there's nothing left to wait for. You're no longer a wanderer. You're no longer drifting. You are deliberate. Every move, every word, every breath with intent. Then let the final flame rise, because this is the moment of return. Not return to who you were, but return to who you were meant to be. The one who was always there beneath the layers, beneath the fear, beneath the conditioning, the confusion, the chaos. The one who was never lost, only buried. Buried under the weight of expectation. Buried beneath the noise of the world. Buried by the lullaby of comfort and compromise. But now you remember. Now you rise. Not to impress, not to compete, but to become the kind of person who lives every breath with fire, who walks with conviction, who speaks with clarity, who moves, not because it's safe, but because it's true. This is the life you were always meant to live. A life of intent, not reaction, not survival, not drifting between jobs, between moods, between months, wondering where the time went, but a life where every action is a vote for the future you designed. A life where you wake up on purpose, for a purpose, with purpose. A life where regret never sets foot because discipline already claimed the space. A life where every scar becomes sacred. Every trial becomes testimony. And every setback becomes the exact resistance you needed to forge the next level of you. Because you are not a product of your past. You are a weapon forged by your decisions. And today, you decided. You decided to stop asking for easier and start asking for excellence. You decided to stop chasing applause and start building alignment. You decided to stop drifting and start dominating your direction. Because that's the truth, isn't it? You were never afraid of the hard. You were afraid of the responsibility, of owning the fact that your life, your entire life is yours to create. But now you know. And once you know, you can never unknow. So this is the line. This is the vow. No more drifting. No more regret. From this day forward, you live with intent, with your head held high and your heart wide open, with your actions in sync, with your values, with your mission etched into your spine. You build what you were born to build. You become who you were born to be. And when the end comes, when the story closes, when you look back on it all, you won't feel regret. You'll feel reverence because you lived like it mattered. And it did. And it does. And it always will. Live with intent or drift with regret, but not both. You've already chosen. Now go prove it with every breath you've got left.